Well, the first thing, if you look on the first masthead, there's pictures of me and Guy and Dave Carson. And the funny thing is that Dave, being the art director, sized all the photos. His head is twice as big as Guy and I's. It's just, which was totally fitting. It was amazing because he was, about as egotistical as they get, and he's become quite famous and stuff. But it was just funnier than hell. I saw that after he laid it out, and I just noticed it, and I was going, I can't believe it. I wouldn't do that. And I think I was 35 years old at the time, so I grabbed Guy, and I think he might have had a North Face jacket, or he got one later, but I had a Sears parka and blue jeans, and we went to Breckenridge, because that's where we learned how to snowboard. But this guy, Steve, who was a fireman, and knew a little bit more than we did, was teaching the class that day, and I think we had 10 people. It was way overcrowded. And I've gone over the run that we learned on, and it's so flat, you can't even move, and I was scared to death. I remember just being terrified of this. I think it was on a second trip. I think the first trip, Larry didn't pop the question. But on the second trip, we were in the Horseshoe 2 Cafe having breakfast, and he said, do you want to do a snowboard magazine? I said, sure. I know exactly what I'll do. I'll make it a surf magazine. And I knew that from the first time I tried snowboarding, I said, this will be surfing for the rest of the world. And the whole thing just became so obvious to me what was going to happen. I could just see it. And that carried me through the whole, the pain of learning and stuff, because it took a while to learn how to snowboard. For the two things that we did to start the magazine were Breckenridge and the North Americans in Banff. Those are the two photo opportunities that we had, and that was it for the season. We just decided to do this pretty late. I mean, to think you were going to kick off a magazine starting in spring was nuts. But he went and shot, and I sat around the half pipe. I just picked a spot with my Sears parka on, my blue jeans, and my wife at the time was a seamstress, and she had made these ripstop purple coveralls for my pants. I just threw those things. They weren't waterproof at all. They didn't work. And sat there and grabbed everybody that went by and introduced myself and just stuck a tape recorder in their face and said, what was your first time snowboarding like? Because to me that was the most obvious thing to do. So I asked everybody what their first time snowboarding was, and Craig Kelly was there, and Terry Kidwell, and everybody who was anybody, and there's probably 35 pros in the world then. So basically it was just sitting there, not being afraid to look dumb and asking the right questions, and I figured that as I discovered the sport, everybody behind me would want to know the same things. So I was just completely naive, asked the questions I wanted to know, and shared them with the rest of the world, and that's how the magazine got going. And we went up to the North Americans and shot the first cover out of bounds at Sunshine Village. Ken took us out of bounds with his brother Dave Achenbach, and Guy set up on this quarter pipe because he'd worked at Skateboarder magazine and stuff, so he had the perfect background for the whole thing. And we set Dave up. There was a skier that pulled over to the side to watch, and he kind of squatted down in the snow. He's actually in the shot, and the sun was behind him, and Motil, being the consummate artist, set it up perfectly. Shot Dave in the silhouette and got the first cover right there, and we were so lucky the sun was out on that trip. So we got our first cover, and then